Hello, and I apologize in advance for some background noise. There's some drilling going on next door somewhere, which of course is not going to help with the live stream, but I can't do much about that. Actually, now that I say this, I realize probably nobody can hear me because nobody's dialed in yet, so I'll repeat this a little bit later. Let me just post to the socials. Yeah. So, hello to Kansas. Welcome. Yeah, since there's at least one person here, I'll apologize for the fact that there's some drilling going on nearby, and hopefully it won't disrupt the live stream too much. But you know, I can't really do much about that. I do live in a block of flats, and sometimes some random person decides to drill their walls just during my live stream, which is extremely rude. But you know, they probably don't know. They should know. It's clearly the most important thing going on right now. But anyway, let's get on with it. Welcome to the daily NFT marketplace analysis by one more market health analysis by me, Daniel Tenner, aka Swombat, where we look at what's happening in the market, particularly from a data perspective, and we'll talk about vibes a little bit today as well, and hopefully won't hear too much of this. Sorry about this. At least it's brief. It's not continuous. We'll just have to bear with it today. I'm sorry. If we look at the charts, we can see that like it hasn't changed much from yesterday. Yesterday we were around here. Today we're around here. It's kind of gone down a little bit and rebound. It's like, you know, it has formed a higher high, so it's continued this short-term bullish trend, which we had highlighted yesterday. But of course, it's still in the long-term downward trend. So we're not like it's still very uncertain right now. We're seeing that Zeneca Old is also sort of tentatively bullish. Zeneca New is sort of tentatively sideways-ish. Zeneca women-led projects is sort of tentatively going very flat, making a little nice pattern here. This looks quite good. Let's jump into the bar charts. And there what we can see is that a lot of the activity in the top 10 is actually driven by this brown project there, which I went and investigated which project that is. And of course, those who have been not playing a role-playing game last night will probably know that it's due to Cool Cats launching their game in beta and all sorts of activity, some positive, some negative around it. It is genuine organic market activity, but it is concentrated in one project, which means that it makes me a little bit more suspicious, of this bump here, because it's largely driven by one project, and that's usually not sustainable. So yeah, it like could be that the real volume is more hovering around here, or real. I mean, it is real volume, but you know, it's not as like, that's why I like to know what the data is actually, like what is the underlying data before making any kind of call about what's going on. Which is why I don't like the OpenSea overall volume charts, because I don't know why, like I have no idea what is actually going on and what might be driving the rise in volume. Here I know exactly that what's happening is this project went up, and that's why my charts went up. And you know, when I see the charts go up, I want to know why. And if it's a single project, I trust that less than when it's multiple projects. Some possible exception made for Yuga Labs projects, because they do tend to end up leading to lots of activities in other projects, especially because of the high prices. So if we look at the top 10 in a bit more perspective, here we can see, yeah, our downtrend is still very much solid here. You know, that little rise here doesn't even get back to the trend. It sort of stops here. So we're nowhere near out of the woods, as Ben Cohen would say. Ben Cohen. There is a little pump in price that came with this little pump in volume, which I think is Cool Cats probably driving the price index up. So I guess their activity was relatively healthy. But effectively, you know, looking at the long-term picture, we're still sort of hovering around here. We're at bear market levels. It's not clear whether we're going back up or we're continuing down in this kind of downtrend here. We're still in a waiting mode, and that's where we were yesterday. That's where we are today. I know it's kind of boring when the same thing happens every day, but it is what it is. At least today we have another project review to look at that might be fun and different from yesterday. It will definitely be different from yesterday. So let's have a look at Zeneca Old as well. And that one there, as I was saying, in the short-term chart, you can see a sort of like slight tentative rise up. If you look at the long-term chart, it's like the 90-day chart, for example, it also actually has its own down channel there. It's not as clear as in the top 10. It's maybe more optimistic. Maybe it's more of a flag pattern than in the top 10, like a kind of downward flag. I don't know. But if you look at this blue line, the 7-day SMA, so it looks like it's sort of going like this. And that's not very optimistic. And I think based on what I've seen of the market in the months that I've been looking at it, as long as this chart doesn't start looking up, this one isn't going to move. And so we're going to need this one. Once if this conclusively breaches through that channel, and starts, if this trend kind of starts going like this, then I'm pretty sure we're going to see some action on the Zeneca Old data set. Otherwise, we probably won't. And that's the nature of the beast. If we look at Zeneca New, this one is still kind of in a sort of downward trend. It's sort of going flat-ish, fairly, well, I mean, when I did the thread, I said it was a fairly good approximation of the straight line. I'm not so sure about it now, looking at it at this point. Maybe I was having strange glasses on or something. But yeah, it's not very optimistic, this one as well. And similarly to Zeneca Old, I think it will only go up once the market as a whole starts going up. Except of course for individual projects. But there's so many projects in those indices like Zeneca New and Zeneca Old that, well, yeah, they rarely tend to go up. Like the index rarely tends to go up based on a single project's activity. It can happen if a project has insane activity. Like we saw that happen with when Crypto Chicks had their big copyright issue and so on. There was a massive sell-off that caused the volume to spike up, even though obviously it was not due to healthy market activity. On that occasion, I removed Crypto Chicks from the index because it was clearly misleading. If we look at the women-led projects, finally, there we sort of see we're still, I mean, it's an improvement. Like, to be fair, this was the downtrend. It was fairly solid, and we're not in that channel anymore. Like, even if I draw this a bit better, we're not in that channel anymore. We're, at the very least, it looks like we're going sideways. Of course, it could be that we've just set up a new downward channel like this in parallel, and we'll see. Time will tell. But it looks better than it did for many months. Since late January, since mid-January, really, it's looked like a downward trend. And it's sort of almost breached it there, then went back down, and then it decided, okay, let's actually breach it and start going sideways. So that's nice. So that's it for the indices. I do want to make a comment around vibes that I made in my thread as well, which is, I don't know about you guys, but when I talk to people in the NFT space these days, people are actually quite optimistic about the NFT space, which is interesting because it's not that they're optimistic because they think that the market is booming and they're not aware of the fact that volumes are very low. I think most people are quite aware of that, and yet they're still optimistic, which is a really interesting thing to note. I know when I say data over vibes, I don't mean data and no vibes. Vibes are also important. It's important to get a sense of what the market psychology is in terms of where it believes things are going. And it seems that despite the low volumes, despite where we are in terms of just everything not really happening, people do believe that things are going to get better. There's a sort of a lot of optimism, which is quite striking as well in the current sort of geopolitical climate and so on. But yeah, people, maybe it's the summer that's approaching and people are more positive about things as the summer approaches, but there's like, I don't see a sense of gloom that, like, back when like around here, I remember people started saying, okay, we're gonna have months of bear market, tighten your belt, blah blah. Everybody was really doom and gloomy. Right now, we're actually at roundabout similar levels than we were then, like towards the upper level of where we were around then, and people are quite positive about it. I mean, we've just visited this level, which is about as low as it went there, and people are actually quite positive. At least the ones I'm talking to. Maybe I'm in a bubble, so if that's not the case for you, if you're watching this, please let me know that you actually think that everything's going down the toilet. But people seem to be positive. Personally, I have been investing in projects that I like. They're long-term bets, so I don't care if the bear market lasts another 3 months or not. But yeah, it's an interesting contrast to note. Let's have a quick look at crypto just to get that done. That channel that I haphazardly drew is still holding, it seems. It's sort of like started going up and then it went back down. And it's sort of held that line, and it's like, we'll see, maybe it will go. I have a sense that psychologically, if it goes down below here, maybe like people will panic and they will sell off. I'm still quite optimistic also about crypto, actually. To be fair, this is actually a bullish pattern for crypto. So we are still in a kind of, like, as long as it holds this, it is a bullish pattern. But even if it doesn't, I'm not like, I don't think crypto is going to disappear. It just means wait another 6 months for it to go up. That's okay. I don't mind. Might buy some more on the way, but I think these days I invest more in NFTs. I get better returns there. Is it worth looking at these? Not hugely. There's nothing hugely interesting going on there. Yeah, I will note that I am reviewing the algorithm that I use to generate that relevance ranking. The reason being that because it's based on last month, last 3 months, and last 6 months, it kind of has a drop. Like, it has this dynamic where for the first month, it's very hard for a project to lose relevance. And then after a month, it sort of drops quite precipitously. And that feels like it will create a very lumpy sort of relevance index. And I wanted to make it smoother. So I'm upgrading this to be over the last week, last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks, last 4 weeks, last 5 weeks, etc., all the way to 24 weeks, which is 6 months roundabout. So that will change the ratings. I think it will increase that amount. It might change the rankings slightly because it will favor more recent activity a little bit more over older activity. But I checked, even with that new algorithm that I'm developing, it's still the same top 10, although in that new algorithm, Azuki ends up taking over Mutant Apes, which they're very close in this algorithm, so it's not that big a surprise. If you have any questions, feel free to post them now, but I think I'm going to get started with that blind review of Muri by HAUS. Which, yeah, let's have some fun here. Before I do this, important disclaimer, this is a blind review. I don't actually know anything about Muri by HAUS other than that I've seen this name over here. I think it's there you go. Number 21, where is it? Here. Number 21, it's a fairly recent project, less than a month old, or about a month old. I've heard of it, I've heard its name, so I know it's like, it's achieved something, Most projects don't get to here, even if they have a fair bit of hype. And certainly most projects don't still hang out here a month later. They usually drop off eventually. So if a project, for example, there is a way that a project can lose relevance in the first month, and that's if it has a kind of chart that ends up looking like this, with a lot of activity throughout. So part of the reason why I'm updating the algorithm is that if a project has a lot of activity around here, and like a lot here, and then it sort of drops off and sort of dies, and there's hardly anything going on down here, then because it looks at the average price, it will still mostly weight towards this part where the price was maybe on average higher, especially if there was a lot of activity near the top here. So especially let's say if the activity was, the price chart was like this, and most of the activity was here and maybe here, then it would weigh the chart towards that. My accent is, well, I grew up in Switzerland, in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, so it's sort of French. Yeah, so that's partly why I'm tweaking the index. But anyway, let's get on with Muri by HAUS. So yeah, disclaimer, I'm just looking at it very unfairly based on what I can see on the website. I might join the Discords to have a look around if I don't get enough information from the... If I get enough information from the website to say, I'm intrigued, maybe I'm missing something, let me get to the Discord, I'll go to the Discord. Otherwise, basically, I'm just following the sort of process that I use when approaching a project. So this one, I know that is done fairly well. Like, actually, my thinking process right now would be like, because I know that it's quite a hyped project, I would just not even bother. Like, you know, if I was doing just the really like the way, like, and that's the reason why it is a blind review, because I haven't looked at it, because I know it's got a lot of hype. And as a principle, I don't tend to invest in hype unless I found out about the project long before the hype, because the hype tends to mask the qualities of the project and make it harder to make a good decision. That's why, for example, I'm not minting or trying to mint the what they call the birds, moonbirds. Even though it's probably a good project, because there's just so much hype there, I just don't want to play that game with the hype. And that's my personal choice. And that's a really important thing to note about any of these reviews, is that it's just my personal perspective about what makes a good investment for me. It could be a really great investment for someone else. It could be a really great trade for someone else. Many things are absolutely garbage investments make great trades. I like to invest. I like to invest in things that look effectively kind of like startups. And the more it looks like that, the more it looks like it's delivering value and is going to have that kind of transition that I discussed yesterday with the Llamaverse review, where investors can transition into customers, the more I'm likely to invest. So without further ado, Muri by HAUS NFT. Let's have a look at this. So there is a website here. Let's try this one. I assume it's the right one. So it's a little bit cryptic. It's going for the Asian play. I can notice that already. Okay, so roadmap. The idea in mind of building, I mean, what I can see already fairly quickly is that, unlike, for example, the site that we saw 2 days ago, it's fairly well, carefully designed. So that's a good sign. Like, there's somebody's taken care to make this, the font is carefully chosen. It fits very well with the aesthetic. This is a website that somebody has so far slaved over to make it look really good, and it does look really good. So there's a good start for a project, for any project. I want to see that kind of attention to detail. And yeah, somebody points out pretty much an Azuki copy, and I'll get to that. I mean, that is there's a lot of those Azuki copies around, because Azuki has done so well, and there's a lot of Basie copies around because Basie has done so well. That doesn't mean that all the Basie copies or all the Azuki copies are bad. Some of them have also done really well. Cyberkongs, as an example, is also monkeys, and they did really well. It was a really high, I mean, it still is a fairly high profile project. Every project ultimately builds on another project. The question is what they do with it. Even Basie built on top of CryptoPunks, and to an extent Azuki built on top of Basie. The question is, do they do enough original new stuff to be worth existing? So anyway, let's look at the roadmap, because often okay, there's a Mirror article which we might glance at, but let's look at the quick roadmap. Token of Muri, blah blah blah. Release a token earn less currency to purchase further goods such as physical pieces or in-game currency for something planned in the future. Yeah, I'm not very keen on that. Token upfront does not reassure me that there's some kind of unique value here. That's my first reaction. Muri anime, as teased, will release a whole anime around the story of Muri and the future of her. So if this is an artist that's already a famous anime publisher, that's okay. If not, that's putting the horse before the cart, because until the project is worth making an anime about, that's an empty roadmap item. I don't buy that. Physical toys. Yeah, I mean, sure, physical toy, people buy physical toys all the time, but let's have a quick glance at the OpenSea, and we'll see that the price is currently yeah, about $2,000 for a floor Muri. I don't think a lot of people buy physical toys for $2,000. That's a fairly small market, and I don't think you're going to make the value from that. Fashion line, team being based in the fashion scene quite early. We wanted to combine all elements and form both merchandise and more than just that. That's a very awkward sentence. So this is where the quality of the website sort of drops a little bit. With our team based in the fashion scene quite early, we wanted to combine all elements and form both merchandise and more than just that. I mean, who wrote this? Like, this is not a clear, this is not a good use of real estate on your front page. I'm not even going to try to figure out what exactly it means. Well, we'll offer our own merchandise. We'll also offer the physical craft line. Each avatar created by ours. Okay, now there's poor English language use, which could be a language barrier if it's an Asian founding team. So I'm starting to see red flags here. Meet the team. Apple, AWS, Alex, but this doesn't sound like an Asian founding team. Sounds like they have people here who speak English as a first language, and they didn't find one to actually review this text to avoid having text that doesn't make sense, or that is just, you know, verbiage that doesn't really add anything. So I'm getting quite a negative reaction now. Like, there was clearly a lot of care in the graphics, but to me, then, like, I'm very writing based, and there needs to be a lot of care in the writing as well. Like, obviously there are some teams that deliver extremely well. Like Llamaverse has loads of like very loose writing, but I have other information about why they deliver well, so it's helped me overlook the kind of writing issues. I had a co-founder as well who was dyslexic, and I learned not to just trust the writing aspect. I used to believe that people who don't write well like can't think well. And then I had a co-founder who was dyslexic, and I learned that, no, actually, like, people, like some people who don't write well at all and like make lots of typos and mistakes and stuff can actually be extremely smart and competent. So I changed my mind about this in the face of experience. Okay, so I mean, there's kind of like a sort of game-ish thing there. Like, what I'm still missing at the moment, having looked at the roadmap, is any sense of actual utility. Okay, they're going to sell a bunch of merch, unless they somehow manage to bootstrap a brand, like a global brand, out of nothing that ends up like lasting and being worthwhile in, like, you know, for the long term. That all that stuff is kind of empty. Let's have a quick look at the Mirror article. In the Japanese symbols now, knowing that the team is not Asian, as far as I can tell, kind of doesn't resonate so well. Unless they're all based in Japan or something, and I've just gotten this completely wrong. So this means Muri, I guess. With the idea in mind of building our own ecosystem around the metaverse, we plan to release a token earned by Muri holders. We plan to do it in many ways, I guess. Yeah, so there's nothing new here. It's just models, fashion. The utility here is really, really thin. Like, beyond buying into, okay, katakana, it means, apparently, according to one of the comments. Somebody else, is the website very relevant to define the value of a project? I mean, is it always so important? So the thing is, yes and no. No, it's not enough to define the value of a project, but it's the first thing that the project presents about itself is the website. So what do they choose to present about themselves? Like, to contrast, yesterday I didn't look at the Llamaverse website, and I will say that, you know, it's gone through various iterations. It didn't used to be so clear, but if you look at the Llamaverse website as a contrast, which no doubt has a bunch of issues, but you can see the very first thing is Llamaverse is a club and community for NFT investors. It's super clear what it is. And it says, we're determined to provide our holders with both valuable utility and education, help them thrive in the NFT space as it evolves. intend to connect to other communities to help bring some of our benefits to other projects in the space. It got like its value is upfront. It doesn't go and hide it in various places, try and pretend to be cool and mysterious and stuff. It's just very clear about what the value is. Like, why should you care? When I look at this website, other than, oh, it looks cool and it's hyped, I don't really have a reason to care. In particular, as a potential customer in that transition from investor to customer, it's unclear to me why I should buy this as a customer. What I'm like, am I going to pay $2,000 and get access to buy more physical toys? Is that the sales pitch? Like, who's going to do that? Like, pay thousands of dollars to get to buy some physical items, or some like what? I'm going to pay $2,000 and they're going to release an anime. How does that give me value as a holder? It doesn't. I don't think it gives value in terms of, like, it gives Ponzi value. So it makes the project seem more hyped, and then people are more likely to want to buy it for more, and then I can sell it to them. But that's not the kind of value that I want to buy into. What I want to buy into is a project that delivers value, that therefore people want to buy as customers, not as later investors that eventually are left holding the bag. That's not the kind of project I want to buy into, basically. And that's a personal choice. And it doesn't mean that they're not hyped, doesn't mean that they're not going to do well. They could do really very well, at least for a time. I believe that it's ultimately unsustainable, but that's my belief. And again, it's based on a very relatively quick review here. Let's just have a look at the Discord just to see if there's something. Oh, invite invalid. Well, great. No, thank you. Let's see if the link on their page is more recent. Why am I not logged in here? Okay, let me just open this elsewhere. Okay, joining Muri here. What is going on? Right. So we look at the Discord now, which is the next frontier to look at. And by the way, the art is really nice. It follows the Azuki aesthetic, yes, but it's cool. So. Yeah, the usual rules: gain access, click, verify the captcha. I mean, I know this is essential. And let's see if it's a captcha. Hope it's not one of those where I have to recognize which planes or whatever. Okay, cool. So that worked. Muri. Well, I have verified the captcha. Let me in now. Ugh. Why is it not letting me in? Oh, I guess it's closed to people who aren't holders. Right. So I've done the captcha, but like I still can only see this. So I'm not going to see much more here than on the website. In that case, it was kind of useless. Okay, there's a story, blah, 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 Night City, where you can... But like, yeah. So my my sense is like the roadmap doesn't tell me anything that makes it worth me paying. Like, if I was going to buy this, I mean, I don't buy stuff at this price anyway. At 0.6 ETH. Like, unless I want to buy it as a customer, I don't buy it at this price. I buy it as an investor at 0.2 at the moment. I might change my mind about this in the future, but where I am right now as an investor is if it's more than about 0.2, I tend not to be interested as an investor. I want to buy stuff that's undervalued at 0.2, and that's going to go to several ETH. So I'm going to get those 10, 20, 30x returns. But if I was going to buy this, I would want to believe that at some point there's going to be a customer who's going to be willing to pay some large multiple of this. Like, let's take a, what for NFTs, but for small businesses, it's not an unreasonable multiple. Let's say a 10x multiple to be like, because we're a bit late. Let's say like I want to see a 10x multiple. What are they delivering that is going to make someone want to pay 5 ETH to buy one of these NFTs? And that's why we look at the roadmap, at the kind of deliverables of what they're planning to do. And what I see is just, from my perspective, stuff that's there to build more hype. And maybe they'll succeed in building more hype, but from my perspective, that's not ultimately sustainable. And they could pivot into something sustainable, like, they might change, but based on the information that I have now, based on their website, based on the Medium article, or it's a Mirror article, sorry. I don't see something, no, like I don't think somebody's going to sit there and pay 5 ETH, which is like, let's say $15,000 at this current price, to get access to some high quality models of Muri characters playing a main part in the story. Like, I mean, maybe some people do, but like, it doesn't seem like a very substantial market to me. I think the only reason why people will buy this is because they hope they can sell it for 6 ETH to somebody else. And I don't buy that. Like, that to me is what I call, when feeling generous, unsustainable project. When feeling harsh, I call it Ponzi projects. And maybe I'm getting it wrong. So again, this is a blind review. I would want to chat to the founders, understand why they're building this, what their vision is, somebody yesterday also asked or somebody on the Discord asked what sort of stuff do you talk about with founders? And they were asking about Llamaverse in particular. With Llamaverse, there were too many conversations with NFT Llama and Heliquin and a few others to summarize them all. But essentially, I want to see that the founders have a vision, that they have a vision to actually build something of value, that they have the ability to get that done, that they have a reason why they're building this as well. That's not just, I want to get rich. Because if the founder's reason is just, I want to get rich, then once the mint is over, they have relatively little reason to continue working hard, because they're already rich, basically, compared to where they were before the project was launched. So that's the kind of stuff that I'd want to talk about with the founders of Muri if I was evaluating the project more deeply, which I wouldn't based on all the hype and based on what I've been seeing here so far. But if I was, then I'd want to talk about why have you started this project? Why have you chosen to do it this way? Why have you chosen to start an NFT project at all? What are you trying to achieve? What's your big vision? If this works out in 5 years, what does it look like? And there I want to see something an answer that's kind of tangible and realistic and believable, and not, oh, we're in 5 years we're going to be everywhere, we'll be the most well-known brand and stuff like that. 'Cause that's just bullshit. You can't predict that sort of stuff, and you can predict stuff that you can do. You can't predict how the rest of the world will react. You can say we want to build, for example, the best community for X. You can't say we're gonna be known across the world. You might say that. Basically, it's a subtle conversation to have with the founder. So yeah, I think I've reviewed this poor project enough at this point. I hope this was useful. If you have any questions, we can still spend a few more minutes talking about this project. I don't really want to bash on it anymore, especially quite unfairly. There's a team working on it and stuff. I hate putting down people without really understanding their their motives. Actually, here, read about HAUS. Maybe there's something interesting here. Well, that's just the projects on the kickoff. So there's some more stuff here, which might give me some of my answers about why they're doing this. Giving back to the community. That's not actually a good thing to say. You should be giving back to the community by building something amazing, not by... Anyway. Benefits for being a part of HAUS. Phases module will act as a key to future in-house projects. Okay, that's still just internally focused. It's still Ponzinomics. Redeeming our launch token, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's still Ponzinomics. Access to in-house events and programs, early access and more. Well, if you've got some amazing events and programs that are worth thousands and thousands or $10,000+, then please talk about them. Don't just say you're going to have events. Otherwise, I assume that this is just filler. Exclusive art material access in phases with artists high valued. Another awkward sentence. Yeah, there's still nothing here that I can see. They're playing the game, the meta as it is in NFTs quite well, I think, but it's not something that I would invest in because of this whole reasoning that I've given you for the last 20+ minutes. So I think that's probably enough for this project. Cool. I hope this was helpful. And if anybody from HAUS or Muri is watching, please again hear the disclaimer that this is a blind review and I would go in more depth before making any kind of conclusion. It's also just a review from my perspective, my individual perspective about what I like to invest in and how I evaluate projects. It's not an absolute statement about any project. So hopefully that helps as a kind of disclaimer. And the art is pretty cool. It is quite similar to Azuki, but it is quite cool. I think house pets will have to be done another time, and maybe not for quite a while, because we've just done Muri by HAUS, and maybe we'll do something by a different brand next. Do join the Discord. I'll spin up a poll for the next project review, and we'll do that. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a couple of days. I don't know, we'll see. But do join the Discord if you want a say in what project I review next, but not house pets. Sorry. I don't want to review 2 projects by the same organization in quick succession. Cool. So, thank you very much for dialing in. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the charts and the discussion about Muri and getting an insight into how I evaluate projects, which is just my perspective, but maybe it gives you some ideas that you can use as well. Have a lovely day. Hopefully it is as sunny where you are as it is here. And yeah, enjoy your Easter weekend. Take care. Bye.